A lot of stuff has been flooding into my news feeds lately about the refugee crisis, and it's not necessarily from friends or people that I know commenting on it. It's more for stories you might like or things related to stuff you've been looking at. You know that creepy part of Facebook where it knows what kind of porn you're looking at because it's like suggested for you mesh thongs. It's like, wait, why do you know that on Facebook? Stop it. Don't need you knowing that information about me. Anyway, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about the refugee crisis and how this has really jumped ship and gone to a moral moment, a moral dilemma, a situation where we need to stop talking about this politically because we need to talk about it morally and ethically as human beings. What are we doing and what are we allowing to happen around this world that is such an atrocity? We'll look back at this and be like, where were we? Why were we so checked out? Why, in the time when we had instant access to what people go through, see, and tolerate daily, whether it's from a government or a regime or a militia, whatever's going on, even inside a controlled environment, a lot of times is captured on video or photograph and able to be uploaded. It's just we have governments that restrict access to certain countries and blocks internet, but I think the bigger part here is that us as a human race are turning a blind eye because we're being controlled via fear. We have governments mongering about how they want to build up borders, and if we accept refugees, then some terrorists might be able to sneak in, even though looking back at this whole disaster, as years go on and we're finding out that groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda before it, all of this stuff, it seems to be funded and trained and militarized by America, and yet we feel the need to declare war on them and then stage this as if it came out of nowhere. Like, no responsibility is being taken whatsoever, and the people that are being affected by this aren't us. It's not Americans. Americans aren't being affected by what our government is doing. Well, not yet. It's the refugees, the people from all of these countries over there that, because they're not our immediate neighbor and we don't see happening, we're able to look away. We pretend like it's not as bad as it really is. And then we don't get flooded with images and videos daily of what these people are going through. I recently viewed a video that's talking about the malnourishment and starvation levels in the countries that are being hit the hardest because money and food donations had stopped coming in since October. All of this stuff is showing us what we as humans are doing to each other right now. Bottom line, this isn't about policy, it's not about politics, it's about what we're doing to each other as humans, how we're treating humans who are less fortunate. That is literally what we are learning about ourselves right now. There is no other lesson to learn other than the fact that because of fear, because all the way back to 9/11, when the government decided to perform a coup on its own people, take us out at the knees, and get us all to shut down our brains. We can no longer critically think, and people who do critically think are criticized because they are looked at as conspiracy theorists or out to find something, and if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. But that's how they shut you down. Nobody's looking anymore. Nobody's looking. Nobody's seeing that Syrian refugees, along with all of these other countries that aren't even being discussed because they don't have refugee status. And please keep in mind, or maybe you didn't even know, but some of these refugees are from countries that aren't in refugee status, such as Morocco or Somalia. Those people who are having to escape their country because it's war-ridden don't have refugee status. Therefore, when they go into a country, it is 10,000 times harder. They don't get to go into camps the same way that the Syrians do. And it's still hard for the Syrians. So this isn't a good situation. Afghanistan and Iran, they have more access to places to get their people into safety. But keep in mind, there's countries out there fighting tooth and nail just to survive. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. Trust me, they're not going to come into our country and make it any worse. It's so immoral the way that we're acting, and the Geneva Convention states that all countries must let in refugees at a time of crisis. America is turning its back to that. I don't know how this country gets away with doing that stuff without being held responsible. But then even those sentences alone scare me to say. It's like, what the fuck has to happen in order for our government, our country, to wake up and realize you cannot act like the bully on the playground and get away with it forever. We can't push people around and back people into corners and force war and steal and profit and gain and flourish, but expect the world to secede and to bow down to our feet. This is so ridiculous. We are treating other human beings that are exactly like you and I. We are treating them like dogs. They aren't being let into our land. They're being refused food and money and shelter. Families are being torn apart. The UN released a statistic saying that over half the refugees are under the age of 18. Now, a lot of this stuff is being underreported, so just that statistic alone is terrifying. A lot of these citizens in these countries are being held captive, whether you look at it in a sense that when they go to a camp for food, water, and refuge, a lot of times these camps are bordered off and they have to either stay because they have nowhere else to go, or they have to get out. Another alternative is to stay in the country that's being bombed. It's at war. They have nowhere to go. People inside their own walls are killing, slaughtering, maiming, raping. All this horrible stuff is going on. So for a mother to be able to put her child in a raft and send him halfway around the world without knowing where they're going to end up, you know the situation's dire. You'd be worried if you couldn't find your child when you went to pick them up from daycare. These mothers are being forced to send their children around the world, and sometimes unsupervised and sometimes with a raft full of strangers, and a lot of these rafts are overturning in the oceans. These are serious issues, people. Susan Sarandon has a documentary coming out called The Crossing, and it looks absolutely brilliant, where she goes into Lesbos and she's working with these families, often through translators, just there to listen, because there's absolutely no media coverage here in the States. So you have someone in the Hollywood community taking it upon herself to reach out and to get a message across to say, hey, these are human beings. Like, look at what they're going through. Emaciated kids and women who just look beat, and men who are risking their lives to save their families. And all they're wanting is shelter and safety. And she even said, all of these Americans being worried that these refugees are going to come in and ruin the country, or terrorists are going to sneak in with a group of refugees. She said none of them that she spoke with wanted to come to America. A, nobody wants to make that trek. The oceans are dangerous. B, they know Americans don't want them, and they're fearful of what would happen if they got here. They're not stupid. They're people. And if we were forced to move out of this country into another, that's rough enough, but doing it under the conditions they're doing, with no money, no communications with their families, they're being forced to part ways. They're being forced into actions very rapidly. And if we were going through that same experience, we would not be the people we expect them to be. It's chaotic. It's scary. They're in fear of their life and their children's lives. I mean, this is reality. This is what we're going through. And if you believe in a God of any kind, wouldn't you see this as the time he's testing you? Don't you want to reach out in any way possible, whether it's getting videos and voices and messages out there for the public to hear and digest and get conversations going, or maybe it's through donating financially if you have the means to do so. I'm sure there are plenty of organizations. Susan Sarandon on The View earlier this week stated that if you go to her Facebook page, she actually has a list of organizations you can donate funds or dry goods or clothing to, all of which would help. I mean, look into things, because it doesn't need to be on our side of the waters. If Canada were to be in trouble, we'd be there. If Mexico were to be in trouble, we'll make it there eventually. South America, them too. I mean, America's greedy, so let's call a spade and be real. We're not the first to act. We like to pretend we are. We like to pretend we give the most help. But oftentimes, even when we offer help, it's after we caused the problem. This is something to take very seriously. Going forward in this time we're in, how awake is human consciousness? Are we even aware that half of the globe is suffering just because we're able to buy new SUVs and iPhones every year, just because our weather is a little more docile than other parts of the world? Is this stuff we're ever going to take seriously? Why does it always have to take a tipping point to get us to realize we need to change? Something needs to be done right now, and this refugee crisis is out of control. The fact that I never have conversations with many Americans that have done anything, myself included, besides making this video and researching, what have I done to contribute to the efforts? I'm not blasting anyone for not doing it. I'm blasting where we've come to be people who don't want to do everything we can immediately. Why are we so stunted as a people? Even people who are awake, even people who have answers. Why aren't we acting quicker? Why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we encouraging a different voice to have power? I'm telling you, this is the only reason. It's these messages alone that I view Bernie Sanders as the only hope in the coming election. I am not one to promote voting in the first place. I think it's all a puppet show. I think us common people are often clouded with our judgment based on facts that we get from higher ups. I think we're lied to often, and we don't know our own self-worth. I think we've been treated as a slave race for a while. And in my eyes, any corporate candidate is only perpetuating that. And every candidate in this race, besides Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, appear to me to be corporate candidates. And as much as it pains me to say Donald Trump isn't a corporate candidate, he's still no one I would entrust with the power of running this capitalistic society. Running America is like running a business. Do you want him to be the president of your business when he has 4 bankruptcies in his past? He's nobody you would want to run your business. Let me tell you that. Bernie Sanders, I don't want to get super political in this video, but he is a Paul Revere of our time. He is trying to unveil the cloak of shady that our government has been perpetuating for decade after decade. He is trying to help other people around this country and other countries around the world by starting a grassroots program where the people help the people. That's enough proof for me right there that he is not a candidate that's bought and paid for. He's in the trenches, he's doing the work, and this video isn't about him. I'm just saying it's about people like him. It's about a collective of people like Susan Sarandon and people like Seth MacFarlane who are voicing opinions that the youth needs to hear because you're not hearing it in school. It's time to wake up, realize you need to create your own education, and realize that the schools and the adults and the authority figures out there in your life, although supposed to help you become a well-rounded adult, will often fail. And you have to look for better resources surrounding yourself. And honestly, a lot of times it does come from your peers. So even though you may be young, don't doubt yourself as much as you do. You know more about the world than you think. Instinctually, I like to think kids and anyone who hasn't tapped into the global idea of money, finances, and whatever runs the world, but somebody running with their imagination, somebody truly in touch with their inner child, I think they're who really can change this world. They're the people who are going to start an initiative, a revolution, as you may say. But for real, if you are one of those people, if you're always inquisitive and always wondering why people do things a certain way, and maybe you don't get the answers that you need from your parents or from your teachers, explore online. There's some crazy cool people on YouTube that I'm learning from more than I have ever learned in a classroom. Some people on the internet are so brilliant, and they're being stifled. Honestly, I came across this woman, Dr. Judy Wood. Look her up. She's being backed into a corner and told to shut up at every point she's made during her truth investigation into 9/11. It's fascinating stuff. She is revolutionizing my way of thinking, and she is a dream interview for me, so shout out to Dr. Judy Wood. But for real, look into some of her research. She's a fascinating woman. She delivers facts and evidence, and she doesn't fuck around. And that's what I like. I like learning from people who aren't here to give you bullshit. It's not a dog and pony show. I don't need Trump, you know? Cool, you're a salesman. I get it. I've been friends with quite a few salesmen. It's not what I'm looking for in a leader. Anyway, take care of yourselves, learn more about this refugee crisis, and please understand that there are things you can do. Just because you haven't found them yet doesn't mean they're there. look into local programs, search the web, and check out Susan Sarandon's Facebook page. I wouldn't promote it if I didn't believe in it. I think this woman is doing some great things. Check her out, leave messages in the comments below, and ask any questions you feel. Let's get conversation going. It's about time, really. It's been months. Anyway, take care of yourself. Have a good rest of your afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.